It's 1 minute past 1 on a Wednesday lunchtime, and we're going to talk today about types of work and types of manager and kind of how they all tie together. Um, so just a very quick one to mention. If anybody does want to win a version of this webinar or one of my other webinars for their company, if you're connected or if you've signed up, we'll enter you into the prize draw already. But if anybody is watching and hasn't already signed up for the webinar through one of the normal ways, then do just ping me on LinkedIn, and we'll enter you into the draw, because perhaps some of this stuff might resonate with some of the organizations that are out there. So over the course of the summer, I was thinking, I do a lot of work with lots of different kinds of organizations. And one of the things that comes up over and over again is this challenge of being too busy. Busy people. And a lot of, and I've been thinking a lot about different ways of managing projects. And I've talked for years about two ways of doing that, which is proactive, which is kind of agile, and planned, which is kind of the traditional waterfall way of working. But so much of the work that we do doesn't fit into one of those categories that I've actually been thinking about this a lot, and it seems to resonate with a lot of people, that there is this reactive work, this stuff that's coming at us from all different directions. And I think it's starting to be really useful when I talk to clients about this, about how we actually deal with these three types of work. And that's what the purpose of this webinar is to get into some of these ideas and maybe share some ideas as to how you can deal with them. So if you think about someone like a service desk worker or a nurse whose job is to deal with stuff happens in the world, and then it lands on their plate, right? Their job is to deal with that stuff. So they're going to turn up and they're going to work on, let's say, tickets or cases that come to them however they come to them. Okay, they're probably going to work for a period of time. They're going to go and take a lunch break, and it's probably quite a formalized lunch break, because if it wasn't, then they'd end up just doing more and more reactive work. And then again, they're going to work again on that stuff in the afternoon and probably go home at 5 o'clock in the evening or at the end of their shift, right? So that's what I would call a reactive job. In the proactive world, those of us that have a to-do list, if you think about the big list of all the things that you want to do, you've got number 1 on the list, number 2, number 3 on the list. And those of you that have seen my stuff about prioritization might have a think about making sure that that prioritized list is actually prioritized and transparent. But something like an IT developer ought to be working through essentially a backlog of tasks of the things that they need to do. So they're again going to turn up at 9 o'clock in the morning. Maybe they do some planned stuff. Maybe they've got like a daily stand-up or like a planning session in the day. But throughout the course of their day, they're just going to work through those tasks. Most important one first. And then something like a plasterer or somebody who works in the building trade, they have specific things that have to happen on specific times. For example, a plasterer has to finish their plastering before, on Tuesday, because the painter's coming on Friday, and then you need 2 or 3 days to dry the plaster in between that happening, right? So they have to plan things out very clearly in their diary. So in this case, a plasterer is going to do their plastering the dining room in the morning, and then they're going to go and get their lunch, and then plastering the kitchen in the afternoon, right? And they know how long those things are going to take because they've done them 1,000 times before. They're really easy to estimate. They're understood, and they're well planned out. Unfortunately, for almost everybody, and probably everybody on this call, our days aren't like that, right? We've got to deal with all three of these things happening to us. So this is the kind of normal manager that I see in lots of organizations. They turn up at 9 o'clock at their desk. The first thing they do, emails and calls, some of that reactive stuff that's happened either overnight or in a different part of the world or whatever, and they're doing that stuff. Then they've got their meeting with the finance team for an hour, and they're in that meeting talking about things, listening and seeing what's going on. Back to their desk and back onto, oh no, there's more things have happened, busy, back onto replying to those emails and calls. Then they've maybe got their one-to-one with someone on their team, with Mary, and Mary, they find out that actually Mary's done something wrong in that one-to-one, and then that sort of spills over into the lunch break, and they have to go and fix that problem. And they end up going and fixing that problem at the expense of the time that they would have had for their lunch, and they actually end up having a quick sandwich at their desk. And then in the afternoon, they've got this planned bit of work. They've got a big team planning session where everyone's going to get together for 2 hours and have a big brainstorming discussion about the things that maybe they're going to do for the next period. And then when they finish that, back to their desk. Oh, okay, loads of reactive stuff that has to be done, and off. And they have to go to their nephew's party. The family's getting together on Wednesday evening for Joey's party, so they're off to that. This is quite a typical thing that I see in a lot of organizations. So they've spent about 52% of their time on reacting to things that are happening that have landed on their desk, other people's agendas. They've spent about 57% of their time on planned things, but they've got a to-do list. And they haven't moved anything down the to-do list, right? So they were supposed to write a Q1 strategy and learn a new skill and do that GDPR training that's always there on the bottom of the to-do list. I've never seen it near the top of a to-do list. It's always near the bottom, but hopefully we can change that. So they get home at the end of the day, another really busy day. I missed my lunch because I had to fix this problem that Mary had, but at least I left on time and managed to meet managed to go to Joey's birthday party. Unfortunately, I haven't made any progress towards my important goals. So what happens then is this, which is the ambitious manager who knows that it's really important that they get through their to-do list. So they are going to come in probably an hour early, right? So they're going to skip the gym and they're going to turn up at their desk, and they know that that first hour is golden because it's quiet. Nobody's coming tapping them on the shoulder, and there's no meetings going on, right? So they can get their head down and do some of that deep work that they need to do. Then at 9 o'clock, bing, the phone starts ringing and all the things go on, an hour of busy work, then into the meeting with finance, then back to their desk, more of that busy stuff going on, and then back into their one-to-one with Mary that's been planned in the diary. They find out Mary's problem. Okay, now we're going to eat into our lunch break to fix Mary's problem, have the quick sandwich at the desk, back into the team meeting for the 2 hours in the afternoon, then back to their desk at the end of that, onto the emails and calls, and they hit 5 o'clock and they realize that they haven't finished the Q1 strategy that they needed to get done. And so they stay late and work into the evening. So in this case, about 52% of their work was reactive, about 57% of their work was planned, 43% has been proactive work. So they've made some progress through their to-do list, but at the expense of their time, their personal time. It's bled into the ends of their day and their lunchtime. So they get home at the end of the day, another really busy day. I missed my lunch hour because I had to fix Mary's mistake, but at least I got the Q1 strategy done. Sorry, I missed Joey's party. I'll make it up to him at the weekend. Pretty rubbish, and perhaps that sounds familiar to some people, some ambitious people on this call. So I believe that we can actually manage this stuff much, much more effectively. And by doing so, we can actually be much more effective and impactful in our careers. So for example, with the reactive work, what we do when it's a reactive job is we time box the job, right? So a nurse's job is in her shift or his shift, right? That's their time that they come in. And then if they didn't have an end to their shift, they'd stay all night, right? They're dealing with people in life and death situations. So they have to finish. They have to walk out the door, and they get used to this. They draw a line at the end of it, right? Otherwise, they would just stay there forever, but probably because they're diligent, hardworking people who know that they can make an impact. So for me, this idea of time boxing on the reactive work becomes really, really important. And actually, there's another way to think about it, which is resource boxing, right? So if there's reactive work, you can put edges on that, both in terms of your time, but also by giving that to a person whose job it is to do that reactive work. This is why we have help desks and triage in the emergency room, because the surgeon needs to be able to get down and plan out for the thing that needs to be done. If you think about your meetings, very often there's a lot of inefficiency in meetings. So I teach a lot of things around things like the parking lot, like how to write a good agenda, how to manage a meeting so it runs on time, how to make and drive good decisions, how to have difficult conversations about the quality of your meeting. And that, I think, should be able to take a lot of your meetings either out of the diary completely or much down to much shorter sessions that are much better run. I also think things like getting down and doing deep work, we often do them very, very inefficiently. Those of us that are using AI nowadays as part of our job can be a lot more efficient than other people. But one of the other things that I like to talk about is this idea of using micro experts to go and get just the little bit of intervention that you need for 10 or 15 minutes with an expert to bring that back and help you to get on with something that's really important. Those two things are very, very powerful. Artificial intelligence and real actual intelligence in very small doses, which we can get through platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, and some of these areas are very, very powerful to helping us being, I call them micro helpers, being much more efficient. If you think about Mary's mistake there, we had an hour of a one-to-one with Mary, and then we found out this mistake and we had to go and fix it in the lunchtime. One of the biggest things that I've seen around effective, impactful managers is this ability to coach and delegate. Coach, teach, train, coach, teach, train, coach, teach, delegate. And when you get into that idea of building the capability of your team, instead of fixing their problems for them, you're actually going back and helping them to fix them themselves. That becomes a game changer. The difference that you have to have is that you have to think long term. You have to think slightly more in advance than just what's in front of us now. Otherwise, it absolutely is quicker and better for you to go and fix that problem yourself. So the ability to stand back and look at what my team is going to be able to do in 6 months or in a year's time, that is a crucial mindset for an impactful manager. And again, I've actually broken down Stephen Covey's matrix on this in the book, those of you that have read the book, and how to think about that in terms of building an impactful team. If you think about your planning meetings, so many meetings that I see around organizations are hugely inefficient, even the workshop ones. Very often you'll get together for 2 hours with a big team of people, and there'll be all kinds of pontificating going on, and you'll go down all these rabbit holes and all these different discussions and come to the end of the meeting without a very clear outcome of the meeting. And worse, not write it up and then have no impact with the organization after the meeting, right? So often these meetings happen, and actually by putting a very simple technique like the SAVE technique, which is silent writing, affinity clustering, vote, and then execute, into a meeting, or lean coffee, or doing things in slightly different ways with post-it notes and affinity clustering and things like that, can make a big difference. And I would argue a meeting like that could be a lot shorter, right? Very often I run SAVE workshops for just 45 minutes or an hour, and we get much better outcomes than you would get if you sat for 2 hours with the whole team, not with a facilitated technique. So the idea with this 3 types of work is actually to think about how we deal with each of them in our day. So this is the diary of what I would call an impactful manager. Right? So they've turned up, they've been to the gym, they've dropped the kids, they're turning up at their desk at 9 o'clock. That's okay. And then they get down and they do have some emails and calls left over from the team over in, in Asia, and they have to deal with that. There's some reactive stuff on the desk, but they time box it, right? Good enough is good enough on the email response, and they know that they're going to be finished at 10 o'clock, and they're not going to look at those emails again until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because they've had a conversation with their team and their stakeholders about the cadence of email and set expectations that emails should be responded to within 24 hours. Right? If there's a different way of dealing with things, then perhaps a phone call or a WhatsApp or Teams message might be a quicker way to respond. But for emails, we're going to do them within 24 hours. That's a bit of a game changer, because it allows you to leave your email out, that kind of inbox that's keeping coming at you. Leave it until 4 o'clock. Then they've had a better conversation with the finance team about, hang on a second, I don't think I need to be in this whole meeting. I think if I turn up, if I give you the information you need beforehand, and I turn up to do any questions, I'll be there between 9 and 9:15, but then I'm going to drop off and I'm going to get on with some other stuff. And then they think about the environment that they're operating in, and they go and find themselves a cubby hole or back into their home office or whatever, like an office somewhere, and they block out that time to go and do that deep work. They turn off their notifications, they get their head down, they don't look at their emails, they turn off their phone, and they get down using artificial intelligence to actually do that Q1 strategy, back and forth, asking it questions, giving it some ideas, bringing the thing in, read a book, input another document, have all that stuff together. And actually, in an hour and 45 minutes of focused, deep work, you can make huge progress in today's day and age on something like a strategy. Then they're going to go to their one-to-one with their team. But again, they're much more structured with their one-to-one. Instead of just whatever comes up in the one-to-one, they've actually got, I teach two parts to a one-to-one. They've got a prioritized list of all the things that Mary's working down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And Lindsay and I do this every week with her list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And she does it with my list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's part of the one-to-one. And the second part of that one-to-one is that growth, that mindset about how am I motivating that person. And again, I like to think about three things when it comes to motivation: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. That ability for the person on that team to make their own decision, to get better at something, the mastery piece, and then understanding why they're doing things. And using those three words for part of your one-to-one with people is an incredibly powerful way of making sure that that one-to-one over time helps them to become more capable and more able to do not just their job, but hopefully bits of yours as well. And you can start to take some of the pressure off yourself. And if you're taking that coaching, building the capability mindset, then even when Mary comes up with that mistake, you're going to say, do you know what? Here's a couple of ways to think about this. Here's a person that you could speak to. Please, you go ahead and do it and let me know if you need my help. And then she'll go away and solve that problem herself. And that's vastly more effective, particularly in the long term, than you just rolling your sleeves up and going in and solving the problem. So then you get to sit down and actually have your lunch. And I would highly recommend going for a walk. I just came back from my little walk at lunchtime, and I thought about a couple of things and some really good ideas, and let your brain actually do some work. Then into the team planning session, something like the SAVE technique, silent writing, affinity clustering, vote, and execute, gives you a prioritized list of the things that you need to do over the next period, or of the risks that could happen in your department or in your project. And then you've got, because you've taken an hour out of that 2-hour meeting and you're running it much more effectively, maybe 15 minutes to write it up and actually have a really good outcome from it. But then you can go and learn something. What is the thing that you're worried about? What is the thing that you don't know well enough? Go and watch a YouTube video. Go and read a chapter of a book or listen to a specific podcast about that thing and direct your learning to that thing. And then when you come back tomorrow to have a difficult conversation with someone, you'll do a better job with that and it probably won't blow up in your face in the same way. And then at the end of the day, maybe you do need to go back to some of that reactive stuff, but you've time boxed it and you're going to leave at 5 o'clock. So you know that, like, you know, people, you've responded to everyone's emails, you've kind of told people if it's someone on your team or somebody your boss needs to respond instead, and you don't need to be including that stuff. You fix that stuff in 1,000 different ways. And so for this impactful manager, they've still spent a third of their day, 29% of their day on reactive work, but they've also spent 32% of their day on planned work, and most importantly, 39% of their day on that proactive, high value work. It's going to make a difference to their careers. So they have got the Q1 strategy done, and they've also spent a bit of time learning about fixing the gap in their skill set that they know they need for the rest of their career. So they get home at the end of the day, fun day. I helped Mary with the problem she was having and fixed the problem in the finance team and in just 15 minutes. I got the Q1 strategy done. It's gone out for review with my boss. Let's go to Joey's party. Much better. And I suppose that's the point. There's 1,000 tiny little things that we need to do and learn to do this, to behave like this. And for me, there's 3 types of manager that play into this, right? So the 3 types of work are reactive, proactive, and planned. The 3 types of manager are the firefighter, that reactive to whatever happens in the world, the explorer, who's able to identify directionally where they're going, but not necessarily all of the exact steps that they have to take to get there, but make progress on it, and the architect, who plans things out and understands that, and actually sets the overall plan. And actually that ties back to 3 types of projects that we all run. Has anyone seen the JFDI project management approach? Just do it. Has anyone heard of that one? It's pretty brutal way. I was actually in a senior group yesterday, and I used this term, and actually, several people were aware of that one. And it's a terrible way to run projects, just by telling people to do it. And actually, using some of the techniques that we see from the worlds of agile and operations management and continuous improvement and waterfall around planning things out and estimating things and understanding risk and how those play together are very, very powerful, whether you're officially a project manager or not. And actually, I find most of the people I work with aren't officially project managers. And that's the point, is you as a manager have to be all of these things. You have to understand how to deal with reactive work. You have to understand how to make progress through a to-do list of important things. And you have to understand how to plan things out and estimate things and allocate them to your team. So one of the things that I turned this into after the summer is I came back and I was working with one of my clients, and this kind of busyness problem came up. And another one of my clients had used this phrase that I really loved, where they were showing, trying to find the waste in work. And they used this phrase from Jerry Maguire: "Show me the busy." Anyone remember? Show me the money. Well, show me the busy, I think, is a very, very powerful way of thinking about this stuff. What are the things that are making you so busy? And are they the right things? I think if we're making good, tactical and proactive decisions about where we spend our time, we will find that the impact that we make as individuals becomes much, much bigger, and we don't get dragged into this very reactive, low value work. So what I did is I rejigged my favorite workshop structure, which is the SAVE technique, into a slightly different way, which I'll explain now. And for those of you that don't know, this is my HiPPO analogy, the highest paid person's opinion, and I have my HiPPO here. That I kind of carry around with me. Sometimes I have cufflinks with hippos on them, but not today. So I've got this one. And it's a really dangerous thing when you're trying to empower a team, is that people often sit back and wait and think and leave the decisions or the discussions to more experienced or more senior people. And that's very dangerous, because a lot of the best ideas come from people who are more junior, or more importantly, closer to the coalface, closer to the reality of what's going on. And without techniques to manage that, then you're going to struggle to get their ideas. And at least as important, probably more important, their buy-in. Because people don't really buy into other people's agendas. They only really buy into agendas that they've been involved in helping to make. So for the Show Me the Busy workshop, like this is the sort of culmination of the idea, and you guys can go and run these workshops yourselves. What you're going to do is you're going to sit down with your team, and you're going to say, right, everybody, let's say we've got five people in the room or 7 people in the room. Right, everybody, I want you to write down on post-it notes all of the things that you think we should be doing. Okay, all of the things that we think we should be doing, and it's silence. It's exam conditions. No copying and no talking. And give them about 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be too long. And they'll start beavering away, writing down these answers on their post-it notes. And all of a sudden, that idea of all that work, that stressful work that's just in people's brains, and email addresses, email accounts, and maybe in something like Jira or some of these tools, starts to come together into the room on post-it notes. And then you can do a powerful technique called affinity clustering. So then you take those, and you're the facilitator, you then take that team, and you bring them together and you say, okay, what's some of the things that you think we as a team need to be doing? And someone will say, well, we need to be responding to subject access requests. And somebody else will say, well, sorry, and we also need to be replying to emails, and we also need to make sure that we've rolled out the new system, and we also need to train people in this new process that we're doing, and we do this, and this, right? And all of a sudden, and when you see things that are the same, you put them together in a cluster, and if they're different, you put them apart, right? And all of a sudden, all of the work that the team are doing appears. It takes maybe 20 minutes to do this well on a board. And you can see it, and you can stand around, and you can put a circle around it and say, well, this is responding to subject access requests, and this is preparing for month end, right? And all these things appear there. And here's where I've changed my approach or used a slightly different approach for this particular workshop, is then we visualize that, right? So then what we do is take three different colored pens, and you circle the groups that should be reactive, the groups that should be planned, and the groups that should be proactive, and just working down your to-do list. And then you take a slightly different approach to each of those types of work. For the reactive work, you have a look at it and you look at how much time that's taking from your team, try and estimate that and see if there's anything you can automate, anything you can improve, but you box it, you put edges on the thing, right? You say, I'm only going to do this kind of work 9 till 10 in the morning and 4 till 5 in the evening, and also Thursday mornings, because we do a whole load of things there that's reactive, right? For the planned work, you get them in the diary, right? Month end happens every month. There's no reason why you can't block the 2 hours of reporting that you need to do before month end happens in your diary for the next year or 2 years in advance. And then you know, oh, hang on a second, I'm going on holiday at that date. Someone else is going to need to do that reporting bit. I better get them into a place where they can before I go on holiday. And you can see it in the diary. And then whatever's left after you've done those two things is your capacity for proactive to-do list work. And it might be zero, right? If it's zero, then you've got a different problem, which is how do you create that capacity? And that's through coach, delegate, and improving, continuous improvement of your work environment, and also saying no to things. But actually, if you have got some capacity for your proactive work, then the skill is to prioritize what's the highest value, lowest effort thing at the top, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and do the top one. Bing! And every day you should be taking something off that list and progressing it, or several things off that list and progressing it. And those are going to be things like your KPIs, or the things you've agreed with your boss that you were going to do this year that you didn't manage to do last year or the year before. No, those are the important things, and those are the things that are going to have a big impact on your career. Right? So actually managing the proactive work is a really powerful way of thinking, and you can then take that away and execute it with your team. So, as I said, for the reactive work, time box, resource box, adjust the boxes. If you find you're getting behind on your emails, you need to give it more time. Right? If it needs to be 9 till 10:30 or 9 till 11 o'clock in the morning that you're doing emails, fine. But now you're realizing that that's actually taking up the capacity, and you can see what that's causing, and then continuously improve. For the proactive work, this is your prioritized list. Those of you that see my other webinar on prioritization, you'll know how to do this. And if you want to go and look, it's on YouTube now as well. And then for planning, you can plan that stuff out and estimate things and understand the difference between work effort and duration, by the way, for that one. And then take your plan and deliver it. So there you go. That's how you run a show me the busy workshop. If you'd like, go ahead and run it yourself. I've given it to you. Congratulations. You're very welcome to do it. If you would like me to come and do it for you, then just let me know. Connect with me on LinkedIn, ping me that way, and I can come and run it from your team. So we've got, I'd say we've got maybe 15 minutes if people want to hang on to do a discussion on this. So we're going to do silent writing for the questions in a minute. But there's links there to my audiobook, free versions of the audiobook on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or you can just search my name and you'll be able to find them. You can buy the book. It is available for purchase most places online. And just connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like to find out more about this kind of stuff. So what I'm going to ask now is everybody on the webinar, well, actually, we better just check, is the chat working on the webinar? Lindsay, would you mind just putting a link to my my LinkedIn in the chat and just prove that it works? Let's see if that's going to work. And while Lindsay's doing that, if everybody could have a think about a question that's something related to what we've just talked about, what I've talked about there, and ask me a question, right? I'm open to the challenge and the discussion. So I'm going to give you 45 seconds of me not talking to actually think of a question, and then we'll get into those. Gosh, it feels like a long time, doesn't it, when there's nobody talking? 45, that was just 45 seconds. So I'm going to ask everybody to hit send on their questions. And let's see if we've got a few questions. So we've got a couple of people dropping off and a few thank yous and things like that. But yeah, if everybody could ping in your questions. So Daniel, do you want to try Daniel jumping on? See if you can turn on your speaker and see if we can. Yeah, what's your question? Oh, you're staying muted, are you? I'll read it out. Okay. So the question is advice for when, hang on, advice for when people impose on my time. In other words, make something urgent for them become a crisis for me. Other people's agenda. Yes. So this is a really good question I come up with lots and lots of times. And the answer is your time is your time, right? But ultimately it's the company's time, right, that you're spending the time on. So the question becomes, is their thing more important than all of the other things that you're working on? And if you can transparently show all the other things that you're working on, and if you've done the Show Me the Busy workshop, you'll have that to hand. If you've written it up, you can then ask them, okay, well, where does that fit on this priority list against all these other things? Now, if you need to, you might have to escalate that decision, right? Because they probably will have a different agenda to you, right? And then the question then becomes, so these are all the important things that you're working on. Is their thing number one on the list? In which case, number 6 that was on your list is now dropping off the bottom, right? It's not going to happen. So you're now able to tell your boss or whoever's kind of needs to make that decision. Actually, this needs to drop down the list, right? So this number 6 isn't happening now because the new number one is coming from this other person, right? If you don't do this, all that happens is all your stuff just becomes into this bucket of must. It's a big bucket of all the things that have to happen. And actually, number 3 is probably the thing that won't get done. And that's worse because it was a higher priority, higher value thing that you could have been doing. So it's very important to make these active decisions. Otherwise, your time will just squeeze into the day. Now, one thing I would say is for different people at different times in their career, it's okay. I'm going to whisper this. It's okay to work late sometimes. If you are ambitious at the moment, and now is the time that you want to shine and do bigger and more important things and move up in your career, then it's okay to work more than 40 hours in a week. I would say if now in your life, like me back in 2016, you've got 3 young kids and like everything's mad at home or you're looking after someone, maybe ambition isn't the number one priority at this point in your life. And that is okay as well. And therefore you need to leave at 5 o'clock. So there's this trade-off between how much you do and how much you're prepared to do, and it's different, I think, for all of us at different points in our lives. And I think that's a useful way of thinking about it, like how ambitious, because it's a race, right? Your career, your life, it's a bit of a race, right? If you want to do better than someone else, sometimes you do have to stay a bit later and do more work. But what I would say is make sure you're working on the high value stuff for your organization. It's really important. If you're working on low value stuff, then you're just wasting that time. If you're working on high value stuff, it's going to move the dial and is on your KPIs and is going to make a difference, then that's okay. Okay. So, Patrick, are you still there? Let's have a look. This is a bit one-sided. It's a webinar rather than a meeting. Okay, I'll just read out Patrick's question. Summarize the 3 pillars of 3 pillars of motivation again. So autonomy, mastery, and purpose. These are 3 things that if you don't have them, tend to be quite demotivating for all of us. So what are they? Autonomy is the ability to have some control over what you're doing, right? If you're just an order taker, it's pretty demotivating. If you can see something that should be done better and you can't make it better, that's very demotivating. So how do you build that into your role and your team's roles? Mastery. If you're not getting better at stuff every day, then that can be quite demotivating. It doesn't have to be big stuff necessarily, but it should be stuff that you're interested in or is going to help you to achieve whatever it is that your goals are. So autonomy, mastery, and the third one is purpose. Why are you doing what you're doing? If you don't know why you're doing a thing, instead of saying no to it, ask why. It's a useful word that you can say. If you ask it nicely, so there's two ways to ask why. You can say, why should I do that? Which is kind of grumpy, and it's like, I don't want to, I'm implying that it's a bad thing. Or you could say, why is that important? Right? Better. And then you might find out why it's important, and either, or at least why that person thinks it's important. And then either you can get on and do it because you now understand why it's important, or you understand more about it and you can put it back into that prioritization about all the other things that are doing. Okay, so there's a good one there from Joe. Couldn't get the camera working, but he has to. He's under time pressure now, but he's going to follow up after he's read the book. That's good. Okay, good stuff. Okay, question from Sam. Sam, I see you on the call. Do you want to see if you can come on, unmute yourself and ask that one? Oh, you can't unmute. Okay, I think it's a webinar, so I'll just do it. Okay, how do you manage situations where founders or senior managers step back into day-to-day operations unexpectedly, making changes or causing distractions with the team? Okay, what you've got here is a problem around micromanagement. Okay, micromanagement is one of those things that lots and lots of people feel they're being micromanaged, but almost nobody feels like they're micromanaging someone, right? What actually those people think they're doing is coaching and helping that team to be more effective at what they're doing, right? That's in their mind almost certainly what they think they're doing, or even just doing the important stuff. The way to deal with this is to ramp up the transparency of the capability of their team and what they're doing. So the status of what you're doing, if you're constantly giving people updates and this is what's happening and this is what's going to happen next and this is the plan, and showing and then hitting those things, then that person will over time start to trust you more and pull out from doing that micromanagement. There's a great story, and I know it's a bit controversial, and Lindsay's probably going to pull a face now because it's about Donald Trump. And he and not Melania, who's the Ivana, bought a hotel together back in the 80s. And Ivana loved rolling up her sleeves and getting into all the stuff that's going on in the hotel. Right? She wanted to decide on what carpets should be picked. She wanted to make sure that the table settings were organized in the right way. She wanted to have an opinion on how the napkins were folded. Right? And she was in there. And actually, the hotel manager got fed up with this and was like, "No, I'm leaving." The new guy came in and he spotted this immediately and he's like, "Aha, I know exactly what to do." And what he did is he invited Ivana into every single meeting, every single decision. He was like, "Okay, do we need lilies or roses for it's this day of the week?" Like, and just overwhelmed her with the minutiae of what was going on, and she rolled back away from it. Right. So I wouldn't very quickly, and I wouldn't recommend overwhelming with the minutiae, but show the progress, show the capability of what you're doing, and ask for help, right? Because there probably are things that you don't necessarily know how to do. Asking for help shows that trust up and down, and actually that can be a really good way. And once they've helped you, you've learned, right? You're getting better. That mastery piece is happening, and they can see that you've learned and that you've done it maybe in a slightly better way. And actually, again, over time, they'll start to pull back out of it. Okay. So I think we're there on the questions. We've gone slightly over, maybe 10 minutes over what we'd scheduled for the call. We will record this and get it up on YouTube. And so we'll send out the links afterwards. If anybody does want to either win this potentially as a webinar for your team or get me involved to come and help do a Show Me the Busy workshop for your team, then do reach out and let us know. And with that, I'll say thank you very much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and best of luck with everything. Thanks very much.